Hi there, hope you had a wonderful weekend and welcome to this episode where we're going to look at the question of what are we supposed to do when we're awake at night? CBT says get out of the bed. ACT says stay in the bed. You say befriend wakefulness. Which one is it? It's quite a common question I get, so we're really going to answer that one in this episode. But before this, one little thing first. If you are a longtime follower of the channel, you know that every third month we invite anyone who would like to become a sleep coach to apply as we start batches every 3 months. And this is the time. Our sleep coaching program opens on May 15th, in about a month from today. And question I often get is like, are there any requirements? Like, do you have to have a certain educational level or anything like that? Not at all. But I will say this, that if you have gone through this journey yourself of struggling with sleep and seen things getting easier, then that automatically really lends itself for you becoming a really, really helpful coach for anybody who's struggling. So I will say that often really helps. Of course, that's not a requirement either. I myself didn't go through that, but I've seen throughout the process that really, really helps to be able to help others in an effective way. So anyway, if you're interested, you can head over to our sleep site. I was going to say our website, and at the top there's a banner that says "Want to become a sleep coach." Just follow those prompts, and I'd be super happy to talk to you if you're interested. All right. With that said, let's get to our question here. And again, we're going to look at the differences in CBT, ACT, what we teach here at Natto. I want to say right off the bat that there is a difference, in my opinion. There's definitely a difference between the CBTi way and the ACT/Natto way. Now, is there a big difference between the latter two? We'll see. We'll see. So we're gonna break this lesson up into two parts. In which we look at CBTi, what CBTi says, and why I think it is tricky. And B, we're going to look at what is the alternative way and why I think that for most people is the way that leads to more peaceful sleep. All right. So first of all, let's look at what CBTi says. So this is a look at the CBTi way, if you will. And when it comes to this advice or recommendation that you should get out of bed when you're not sleeping, that is part of what's called stimulus control in CBTi. So stimulus control often says this: if you haven't fallen asleep in 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 15 minutes, depends a little bit on who's doing the CBTi here, but if you haven't fallen asleep in a certain time frame, then you should get out of bed, is the teaching. And you should do something soothing, not too stimulating, and only go back to bed again when you feel sleepy. That is basically the essence of stimulus control. Now, what can really help to understand, further is to see where this came from. So stimulus control is basically a Pavlovian idea. You remember Pavlov there, who rang the bell and the dog started salivating? Well, it's similar here. The idea is that with insomnia, we have started to associate the bed and the bedroom environment with being awake. And the idea is that as soon as we go into that environment, our brains automatically go into like wakefulness mode, and that's why insomnia happens. And stimulus control is a way to sort of try to reverse that. And the idea becomes, okay, we need to associate sleeping with the bed. And therefore, if you're not sleeping in your bed, you have to get out of your bed, and you can only return to bed when you're sleepy, so you'll probably sleep, to sort of create an association between the bed and sleeping instead of the one we currently have. And sometimes that can seem like, okay, that kind of makes sense, but there are three reasons why I think this is quite tricky. And the first one is that it implies controllability. This idea implies that if you only do this, then you can control what associations the brain has. And this is a way of trying to have mind control, trying to control what thoughts we have and how those thoughts form belief and how those beliefs form association, etc. And whenever we humans try to control something that we actually cannot control, then we get into some struggle. So I think this implied controllability, implying that we can control sleep, we control our thoughts, we can control associations, is very tricky because we get frustrated when we see that that isn't the case. We don't have control of this. So implied controllability, I think, is quite tricky. And number two is that this way leads to self-monitoring. Imagine somebody tells you, if you haven't fallen asleep in 20 minutes, you got to get out of bed. That seems really important. And then of course you're lying in bed being like, okay, it's been 5 minutes. All right, I still have 15 to go. Oh no, now it's been 10 minutes. And it also how are you supposed to know it's been 20 minutes or not? Well, it really lends itself to checking the time. So you look at the time, it's been 15 to 16, and now I'm definitely not going to sleep. You get frustrated. Then you get out of bed, and then there's more monitoring because you're told to only go back to sleep when you are sleepy. So now you're monitoring how sleepy you are instead. Am I sleepy enough? I'm a little bit sleepy. Oh, I felt sleepy. Oh no, I missed it. Oh, now I have to wait more. So this self-monitoring, as you can see, leads to a lot of struggle in itself. That's not number two. And number three here sort of comes from number one and two. This way leads to self-criticism and performance anxiety so often. It leads to self-criticism because when you found that, oh no, I'm still associated in the bed with wakefulness. Oh no, I'm no good at this. No, how can I do better? I have to do better. That's self-criticism and also performance anxiety. Like, oh no, I still haven't gotten this. I have to do this again. I have to try more and try more and try more. So for these three reasons, I think that the stimulus control idea is quite tricky. And we've seen so many times on this channel how it has led to more struggle rather than less struggle. So I think this is different than the other way, which is what we teach in here in Natto, or our general teaching, and in ACT as well. And I want to say right off the bat that I think ACT and Natto are really no different in this regard. Generally speaking, I think of Natto as sort of a cousin of ACT, very, very similar thinking and ideas. But let's look at it in some more detail here. Okay, so what does ACT say? Well, ACT says that attempting to escape emotions leads to struggle, and therefore you can stay in bed. And I recently, as this question comes up every now and then I was like, I'm going to really look into this. And my resource was The Sleep Book by Guy Meadows. And I did not find in any way that Guy Meadows says you have to stay in bed no matter what. I really see that the teaching is similar to here, which is that you can stay in bed even if you feel anxious. Or maybe ACT would say, particularly if you feel anxious in bed, you can stay in bed. But the bed is unimportant. It's not about the bed. It's about the emotions. ACT is about, like, when you're facing the emotions that you've been scared of, that you've been trying to escape, and you're willing to be in those emotions, sit in those emotions, then we can see that they're not dangerous. Then, we can see that we're safe. Then those emotions fade away. So again, it's not about the bed. And also, ACT is not a rigid way. I bet that if Guy Meadows was a guest, and if you hear this, Guy Meadows, I would love to have you as a guest. Guy Meadows is one of my top guests I would really love to have. But anyway, I bet if he was a guest here and we asked him, so if somebody understands this teaching and it says, for me, I'm not leaving the bed because I'm escaping anxiety. I just feel it would be a little easier for me. I would just prefer that. In fact, I think I would be more willing to sit with my anxiety somewhere else, or something to that effect. I bet that he would say, well, in that case, it's fine. It's not like you have to be in your bed. It's just, the teaching around staying in your bed is just an invitation to, to sit with difficult emotions. So that's my thinking on this. And then going to what we teach here, or Natto, our core teaching here is that insomnia happens when we think that being awake is dangerous, and anything we do that teaches us otherwise is befriending wakefulness. So when you ponder this, you can see that it's very much the same idea, that when the brain thinks that being awake is dangerous, that makes us have these emotions that are fear and that are anxiety. And when we do things that teaches us that being awake is actually not dangerous, whether you're staying in your bed and reading a book, whether you're leaving the bed to have a snack, doesn't matter, as long as we're teaching our brains that being awake in itself is not dangerous. You can see that that's very, very similar. It's really the same thing as sitting with your emotion and being with your emotion, right? So I think the Natto and ACT way is very much the same. So we've seen here that there are these two ways I think you can approach it when you find yourself being awake at night or in the evening. And I've shared why I think the CBTi way is tricky, and why I think the other way generally is easier. But who knows? Maybe the CBTi way is your way. You can ask yourself which way would you think would help you the most, and whatever feels comes easier to you, that you think that that's probably what's going to help me. I think that is your way, and I hope you find that way, of course. And as always, let me know how this sounded in the comments, and thank you so much for being here. With that said, I want to just end here and say bye-bye, and hope to see you real soon.